When the San Antonio Spurs took Rob Dillingham with the 8th overall pick, I was excited, mainly because Dillingham is a great guard to have next to Victor Wembanyama. However, his draft rights were traded to the Minnesota Timberwolves in exchange for a 2030 pick swap and a 2031 first-round pick. So while the Wemby Dilly dream is dead, I am very excited about Dillingham being in Minnesota. I think this is a great situation for him to be in, and I'm very encouraged by what Minnesota can do with him in terms of his development in the short term and fit in the long term. I think in a few years, we will look back and wonder how the NBA let Minnesota get a player that is as good as I think Dillingham can be. But quickly before we go any further, if you're new and like basketball, I'd really appreciate it if you would like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, I'm notified whenever I release a video. I make videos about basketball all the time, and liking and subscribing are the two best ways can help me on the YouTube algorithm, help support the channel, and I'll be reaching my goal of 10,000 subscribers by the end of the year. Let's try and get 100 likes on this video so YouTube will recommend it to others. Anyways, let's talk about Rob Dillingham. A good place to start with Rob Dillingham in Minnesota is actually talking about what Rob Dillingham is as a prospect. Dillingham was the most dynamic offensive talent in this draft class. He has one of the best handles I've ever seen in a prospect. He's quick and shifty, has really good speed and change of direction, plays with very good pace in terms of acceleration and deceleration. His feel as a shot creator off the bounce is incredible. He has great body control around the basket. And while I wouldn't say he's an elite playmaker, he did show a lot of signs that suggest he can be a point guard that runs the offense to some extent, in terms of having the handle and vision to be capable of it. But what impressed me most was the fact that this is a guy who prior to college was a heavy on-ball player who was really just allowed to do whatever he wanted to, in terms of taking as many shots as he wanted to, dribbling as much as he wanted to. But he was able to adjust to playing off the ball at Kentucky. It's common to see really good Kentucky guards struggle a bit to adjust to playing more off the ball. Tyrese Maxey is a great example of that. But Dillingham adjusted very well. He was still efficient despite learning a new role, which is why I believe it's one of the most impressive adjustments I've seen a player make from high school to college. He thrived off the ball. It never felt like he stalled the offense or was a black hole. And that to me speaks to the kind of mindset he has as a player, one that's willing to sacrifice in order to win. So already getting a dynamic offensive talent that can play on and off the ball where playmaking upside is very good. And I'll talk more about it soon, but I also think he's a very good fit next to Anthony Edwards. Now, Dillingham isn't a perfect prospect. He's really small at only 6'2" in shoes and only around 165 pounds, only has a 6'3" wingspan. While he puts in the effort on defense, I don't really question his motor. He naturally is just going to be at a disadvantage, and he does need to get stronger. I think around 175 to 180 pounds would be ideal for him. If he had a better frame, he would have gone top 5. If he had a frame that we see guys like Scoot Henderson, Isaiah Collier, or Emmanuel Mudiay have when they were entering the league, he would have been the number 1 pick. Regardless, I trust NBA trainers to handle his strength and development well, and I don't think it takes away from how special of an offensive talent he is. One of the biggest reasons I'm excited for Minnesota getting Dillingham is because he gets to be mentored by Mike Conley. And there isn't a better mentor for a player like Dillingham than Conley. Conley himself is a small guard, and I think Dillingham's best outcome frame-wise is somewhat similar to what Conley is right now, at 6'1", 175 pounds. Dillingham has all the tools to be a great guard, but having Conley as a mentor increases those chances for me. Conley is the definition of a consistent, steady, rock-solid forward general. A guy that can run an offense, make sure everyone is where they're supposed to be, and the ultimate pro off the court. I think Conley can be a player that helps Dillingham unlock his playmaking potential. The playmaking to me is the biggest swing factor when it comes to Dillingham being a good player and a great player. And while it's not a guarantee, having a guy who's as battle-tested and proven in his role while also being as consistent in his role for as long as Mike Conley has as a mentor for a talented young rookie guard could be what makes Dillingham the great player I think he can be. I also think being around a winning culture out the gate is very valuable for Dillingham. In no way am I saying he's Jason Tatum or Jaylen Brown. He's not even remotely similar to either of them in any aspect. But Jaylen and Jason were drafted to winning cultures. They were drafted by a team that was making conference finals since their rookie seasons. And I think being around that winning culture was very important for them. Seeing what winners put in to get to where they are. Seeing how teams who have real aspirations operate since the moment they walked into the building as rookies. And that to me is a big reason why those two developed into one of the, if not the best duo in the NBA and an NBA champion. Rob Dillingham is joining a Timberwolves team that just had the best regular season in franchise history, beat the defending champs in the playoffs in Game 7 on the road, and made it to the conference finals. So he's going to be in a locker room with guys who have those aspirations, guys who know what it takes to make a deep playoff run, and being around an organization that clearly wants to win a title the moment he steps into that building. Yes, he may sacrifice early production, the same way Tatum and Brown did, but long term, I think this will be beneficial and why he becomes a great NBA player. So what will Rob Dillingham look like early on? I do think he gets minutes out the gate, even with the defensive and frame concerns. Now, it wouldn't shock me if he's a G League guy early on. I definitely think that's a possibility. But I also think they drafted him for a reason. They invested the capital to move up and get him in the top 10 because he was a need for this team. Right now, they need a spark plug off the bench, and having a dynamic offensive talent like Dillingham is what they needed. Someone that can be a microwave scorer early on, get points in bunches, but also play well off the ball and get to play with the starters as well, and somebody that is a, at least now, good playmaker with potential to be a great one. I see his rookie year being around 15 to 20 minutes per game, around 8 to 11 points per game, and around 2 to 4 assists per game, with low field goal percentage, but decent to good 3-point percentage, which is common for young guards, especially smaller ones in the NBA as rookies. Mainly because of the physicality in the defense, on top of the fact that Conley's just a better player right now. I don't see him getting big minutes, 25 to 30 plus minutes. I don't really see that as a rookie. I could be wrong, but I do think Conley is still a very good player right now, and it doesn't really matter. I still think he's going to have an impact as a rookie. The way I see Minnesota handling Dillingham early on is honestly similar to how the Warriors handle Jordan Poole. And we can say what we want about Poole now, especially after his disastrous season with the Wizards, but Poole in Golden State was a positive player for the most part. And I think Dillingham has the upside to be a lot better than even the best version of Poole. He doesn't have the frame that Poole has. He would have been a top 3 pick if he had Poole's frame. But I think he's a much better playmaker with more upside than Poole had. I think he's a bit more versatile on and off the ball. I think early on we see a microwave scorer with a bit more to his game than just being a one-dimensional scorer. And I think he develops into their long-term starter by year 3, maybe year 4, but I would say probably around midway through year 2 or definitely year 3. And if Rob Dillingham reaches his potential, he's the perfect guard to have next to Anthony Edwards. Edwards has grown as a playmaker, but he's never going to be Luka or Harden in that regard. His value is as a scorer that isn't one-dimensional and uses playmaking as a leverage rather than a focal point. Dillingham is the perfect fit next to Ant for a few reasons. First, he takes pressure off of Ant. He's another dynamic offensive creator that teams have to worry about. In theory, he can be a guy that can set up the offense, and That means that teams won't be able to simply focus on Anthony Edwards, which will make his life easier. Second, Dillingham has the versatility to thrive next to Ant. Ant has unreal scoring gravity. He's big, he's strong, he's physical, he's dynamic, and that will lead to easier looks for Dillingham, who has proven he can thrive off the ball as well, and he's a really good shooter that can get open looks off Ant drives. He moves well without the basketball, and he sort of can play off of others that aren't as good as Anthony Edwards when he was at Kentucky, so I don't think he will have a problem with it in the NBA. What Ant needs next to him in a point guard is a guy who can take some of the pressure off of him, be able to run the offense from time to time, and be another threat. And if Dillingham develops into the player I think he can, we could be looking at the best backcourt in the NBA in a few years. Rob Dillingham is a player I was very high on in this draft. He was my number 3 prospect on my big board. And I understood that he could fall a bit because of team fit and some concerns about the frame, but he landed in a great spot in Minnesota. He gets to be around a winning culture, which is rare for a top 10 pick out the gate. Most top 10 picks aren't going to teams that win close to 60 games, play in the conference finals, and also beat the defending champs in the second round while having to play Game 7 on the road the previous season. He gets to be around an amazing mentor in Mike Conley, who can help him become more of a floor general and better playmaker, help expand on his potential in that area to develop into the best possible version of himself. And he's a great fit next to the Timberwolves franchise player Anthony Edwards. He can play on and off the ball, which gives him lineup and role versatility. I understand the concerns about the frame. He's really small and he does need to add weight, but I also don't think you can ignore the dynamic ability he has on offense. I don't think you can ignore his ability to adapt to new roles and situations. I don't think you can ignore the potential he shows that suggests he can be more than just a one-dimensional offensive player. I think the floor with Rob Dillingham is very high due to his dynamic offensive scoring and his ability to play off the ball. At worst, he's a microwave scorer that isn't an offensive black hole off the bench. But I also think his ceiling is very high as well because of that same offensive ability that's so dynamic. Somebody that can be a great scorer and a good playmaker, can play on and off the ball, be perfect next to a superstar, be a legit number 2 or number 3 option on a contender, an all-star level player, maybe even borderline all-NBA if everything goes right. I think Dillingham is going to be a great NBA player. I think he's somebody that shows all the signs of having the high floor to be a contributor and having the ceiling to be one of the best players on a really good team for a very long time. And without Minnesota was already trending around Anthony Edwards, we may look back on this pick and wonder how the league let Minnesota get Rob Dillingham. But that's the end of this video. If you made it to this point, thank you so much. Again, haven't already, like, subscribe, hit notification bell, I'm notified whenever I release a video. I make videos about basketball all the time, and liking and subscribing are the 2 best ways can help me on the YouTube algorithm, help support the channel, and I'll be reaching my goal of 10,000 subscribers by the end of the year. Let's try and get 100 likes on this video so YouTube will recommend it to others. Let me know what you think about Rob Dillingham. Do you think he was the right pick? Do you like Minnesota trading for him? Who do you think should have gone at pick 8? Do you like his fit in Minnesota? How good do you think he's going to be as a rookie? Who are your favorite and least favorite picks of the first round in the 2024 NBA draft? I'd love to hear all of that in the comment section down below. But with that being said, have a nice day, and I'll see you guys in the next one.